last time. Was it he said he
Hey everyone, we'll get started in like 2 minutes.
Lol.
How long is the class?
Class will be until 6 p.m. today.
Okay.
Cool, looks like we have pretty much everyone, so we'll go ahead and get started. So today we'll be building a personal website. If you missed last class, don't worry, you can, all these classes are being recorded, so we'll have information on how to watch the recordings, and then you can catch up. So yeah, so I'll review, I'll do a quick overview of some basics of HTML and CSS, but we're actually just going to be using more of those basics this class. So I'll explain everything I'm doing this class as well. So first, what I'm going to do is actually just create a folder, and it'll have all the code that we'll write for this class. So I'll just call it personal website. And then I'll make so this is Sublime. So all you have to do is open Sublime Text, and then just say File, New File. So we have a new file here, and then if you could mute your microphone, please, that would be great.
You're muted.
Okay, so we're going to save this new file now to the folder that we created, personal website, and we're going to call it index.html. So that's what we call our base HTML files. This was explained in last class, but I'll basically write it all again. So we will have the doc type HTML. This is what tells the browser that we're reading from an HTML file. Then we have our HTML tag. This is basically where the content of our page will go. So this is kind of the base of any HTML file that you'll create. And then you'll also have the header tags. This is what we basically use to add some content to our page, add data to this HTML page, but it does not show up on the actual content of the page. So this title, for example, and I'm going to call it personal website, is so now let's open up this page. So what we have to do is go to our folder here, and we can just drag the file onto our browser. So now we obviously have no content, but we can see that personal website showed up at the top. So that's great. So cool. And then we'll have a body. The body is for all of our content on the page. So for example, as we saw in last class, I can do this, hello world, and it'll put this content on the page. We can use a p tag for a paragraph, which is just normal text basically. So this is just normal text. This will go on the page too. So yeah, that's how we'll write our personal website. And then yeah, so first what we want to do actually is create a couple more files. So we're going to create index.css, or sorry, styles.css. So this will basically have all of our CSS for our page. And again, CSS is what we can use to add colors and design to our page and actually style it the way we want. And to import a CSS file, all you have to do is say link, and we do this in the head because we don't want this showing up on our page. We just want it to know where to read the file from. And then we'll say style sheet href equals just styles.css. So this is the file that we created. Make sure you save it to the same directory. So we have styles.css and index.html in the same directory, and that way it knows where to find this styles.css file. So now we're able to write any CSS we want in this file, and we'll do that soon. And then the last file we'll want to create is our JavaScript file. So it will be called index.js. And for this file, we'll need to add the script tag at the bottom of our page. This is also not seen by the page. So we'll basically just tell our script tag that we want to read from the JavaScript file that we just created. So we can actually just do it in one line. Say source equals index.js. So that's how we can now read from this file that we just created, index.js. As long as they're all in the same folder, this will work. Cool. So I see, how do you make an empty file? So to make an empty file, you'll just want to click new file at the top when you're in Sublime Text, and that, as you can see, will make an empty file. And then if you click File, Save As, it'll let you save the file wherever you want on your system. In Windows, for Windows, you can actually do the same exact thing as long as you have Sublime Text downloaded. If you don't know where to download Sublime Text, then please check the tiny URL, and you can basically see where to download it. Once you've downloaded it, you can follow the same exact steps where you can create a new file and save it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Could you go a little bit slower? I'm trying to get everything on my thing. I'm sorry, but
Okay. This class will be recorded too, so if you miss something, you can always watch the recording back.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for me, after the link rel style sheet, for the next head, the first bracket is showing pink for me on Sublime Text.
Sorry, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. If you could post that your
probably-
code in the Slack.
It's
Yeah.
probably because you didn't put that slash before the second one. So bracket slash and then at the end.
No, I already did that. Like
Yeah,
after,
just
before the slash, it shows pink on the bracket.
make sure you're copying my code exactly. You might be missing something.
Okay.
But if you can't figure it out, then post in the Slack after class, and I'll answer it there.
Got it.
It's easier for me if I can see your code.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you compile the code?
You don't have to compile HTML. So the way we're able to read this code is just in our browser. So as soon as we drag our file to our browser and open it up, the browser will automatically read our file and place the content on the page.
Oh, so how do we drag it to the browser? How do we create that fresh sheet?
Yeah, so as I showed, if you have a folder with your files in it, there's multiple options. One you can do is open with, and then you can just choose Chrome or Safari, any browser that you want.
Okay.
Or like I said, you can just drag it. So you can just see it. What I'm doing right here is where you just click on the file, drag it, and then put it on your browser, and then it'll open up the file over there.
All right, I see.
No.
Excuse me? What live
Yeah.
on Facebook? What are you live on?
We're live on Facebook.
No, but like which account?
Oh, it should be under Rishi Kumar, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
That's Rishi Kumar.
How do you open the file on a MacBook?
Just as I just showed, so you'll just have to go to your file, right click on it, and then click open or open with and click Chrome.
Can you just click on the file 2 times?
Yeah, you can also do that, but this will ensure that it opens in Chrome.
Got it, thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna keep moving so that we can finish the content for this class. So, so now we have all our files created. So it looks like, I'll zoom in a little bit to make sure everyone can read. And the files are all, I'll write the names of the files in the chat. Oh, cool. Yeah, so rel equals style sheet. That just basically tells it that it's a CSS file. You don't need to worry too much about that. As long as your href, which is where the file is located, is correct, then this will work. So this basically tells, okay, look at the CSS file, in the styles.css file in this folder. And then similarly, we use source for script tags. And the script tag basically says, look at this file and read from this JavaScript file. So script is always used for JavaScript, basically. And then link here will be used for CSS when we say it's a style sheet. / tells us that we're in the current folder. So it says to, it's basically saying, look in the current folder. You guys don't need to worry too much about that. Just make sure that all your files are in the same folder, and then this will work.
Excuse me?
Cool. Yeah.
How do we do comments?
Yeah, so that was explained in last class, but I'll show it again. So
Just do
so
command
what you can
slash.
do. Yeah, you can do command / in
Alright.
Sublime, but if you're not in Sublime, then this is the format.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So first, on our website, I'm
Excuse me, I have a
going
question.
to-
Very quick one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you actually run this structure so we can have it appear on the spreadsheet?
what spreadsheet?
Sorry, the white blank sheet over there. How do we actually get it to appear there? How do we run it?
I think you first have to add in like some text
Oh yeah,
into
yeah.
the body and
So
stuff.
like I said, yeah. So like I said, the body is the only place where any content will. So since we have nothing in the body, that's why our page is empty. But once I add some content, you guys will see. So what we're gonna have is a sections div. So this is basically just to say that these where all of our links to different sections on our website will be. So I wrote this code, and then you guys can ask some questions about it. So we're gonna just have a about, and then we'll have
What is div?
me. Sorry.
What is div?
Yes. So div is just to say this is a section, basically, on our page. So it won't actually. It basically just allows us to surround a list of tags. So like here we have 3 A's, and it'll basically say like this is one section, and they'll all. So as we can see now, I refresh. They're all going to be in the same line, but yeah, this basically just surrounds them and says that this is like one section. So now what we can actually do is go into our styles, and we're able to actually actually give these give this section style. So that's the advantage of that's the advantage of having a div, is that we can now style all of our content using this class. So as I give it class sections, we can now style it. So what I'll do for now is say display flex. So what display flex does, it basically allows us to style our content so that we can say, do we want it in a row or a column, and also be able to say like how we want it to be spaced. So you don't need to worry too much about this. I'll send homework for being able to learn how display flex works, but this is basically what you need. So now what happens is I said display flex. So that says use a flex container around these links, and then flex direction row says go in a row, not a column. So for example, if I did column, then it now goes downwards instead. And then space around basically says put space in between all of our titles here, or links here, and then that way they're evenly spaced. Cool. So do we have any questions on that?
Yes. So
Yeah.
when I'm trying to run it, it doesn't do it in rows, and it just has it in yeah, it doesn't have it like spaced out, and mine is bolded for some reason.
Yeah, sorry. Like I said, it'll be hard for me to debug your code without seeing it. So just try to follow along with what I'm doing, and then after class you can post it in Slack, and I'll help you fix your code. But once you have my code as an example, it should work.
Got it, thanks.
Cool. So yeah, let's explain this again. So display flex says let's put a flex container around our elements here. So so here we'll have div class equals sections, and this says make this a flex box basically. So all these nodes are now wrapped in a flex container.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
So can
Yeah.
you not have ID equals sections, or does that only apply to one of those tags?
Yeah, so you can do ID, that'll work. And then you would have to use a pound sign for ID, and we can see that displays the same content. Doesn't really matter. ID is really meant for elements that are the same. So only one element on the page can have an ID, whereas multiple elements can have a class. So let's say I wanted to do some other content here and have sections like that, then that'll work too. So yeah. Yeah, because cool. So let's see, do we have any, how is their text? So to open a file, all you have to do is basically say open Sublime Text and click new file. I explained this in first class too, so you can in the first tutorial also on the tiny URL. So if you go there, you'll be able to see exactly how you can open a file and run it in your browser. Cool. So here's the CSS again. Flex direction row. So any questions about opening the file and opening it in the browser and stuff like that and running the code, don't worry about it too much. Just try to follow along with what I'm doing, and then after the class, you guys can try it for yourself. And so your homework will actually be to create this website by yourself. So don't worry about doing it during class.
Wait, what does flex direction do again?
Yeah, so flex direction says which direction to put our content in. So here we're saying put it like in a row instead of a column. So those are the two options for flex direction. And if we do column, then it'll actually go downwards instead. And then space around says put space in between our elements. So if we don't basically, they're just going to be right next to each other, which obviously that doesn't look as good. Cool. So I'm going to move on so that we can make sure that we explain this entire site for your homework. So now what I'll do is actually have a section to describe me. So here I can use ID because we're only going to have one section that describes me. So, and then we can see how we're going to style an ID also. And then let's see, what we're going to want is to have our name. So I'll say, and then we'll also have information about me. So I'm a software engineer in San Francisco. So let's display that. Cool. And so to recap this, H1 basically tells it that it's a header, and it's the biggest text on the page basically. And then a p tag is just normal text. It's a paragraph of text, and it's just going to be smaller text, as you can see here. Cool. So next we'll want to add an image for ourselves. So don't worry about doing this either, but I'm going to drag an image that I have of myself and put it in the same directory. So I just called it profile.jpg. Just make sure it's in the same directory. And then in our image tag, we can say source equals / again for the same directory and JPEG. So all I did was tell the image tag where to find the file. And now if I do this, now we can see a picture of me on the page. So that's how you display an image, but obviously it's really big. So let's see if we can size it down a little bit. So we can give our image a class. So we'll say class name, or class equals profile image. So now we can go in here and say profile image. I'll just say, I'll give it a random height, 600, 600, or let's try 200 and see what happens. So that looks like a little too small actually. So I'm gonna try 600, and that looks like the size I want. Maybe I'll do 500 instead. Cool. And then perfect. And then what I want to do is, now what I want to do is actually have the information about me on the left of the page and the picture on the right of the page. So to do this, we'll actually use another these three files. I can remove everything after this, and also all these three files will be on the tiny URL, and you guys will be able to reference them to do your homework. Use in this page is here. Hi, sorry about that. I think my computer just dropped, so let me share my screen again. Cool. So let me explain this part again. So as I showed before, we have the ID equals me. So this is basically just a section about me. And what we'll do here is say display flex, flex direction row. And by giving it flex direction row, we'll actually now move our content in the row format like we wanted. So yeah. And then the last thing we'll do is say justify content space around again. And this will space it a little more evenly, and that looks a little better. So,
Excuse me, I have a question.
yeah.
Couldn't you have also said text align center or text align left?
So text align center might not work because basically the problem here is that our div actually is not taking up the whole page, right? It ends right here. So it will center it in this right here. So you can see like how this is centered. And if I change it to left, then it'll go to the left. So we can center it, or we can change the alignment within this box right here, but we can't actually say how we want it to fit on the page. So that's why Flex is really great, because it allows us to say, put space around our elements, and then it'll take up all of the space that it can.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So it's about startups. So when we're building our HTML website, can we put in like we're using a questionnaire for a business? Can we put in a questionnaire using an iframe?
Yeah, you can. Since this is not very relevant to the website that we're creating for this class, let's make sure. Let's just ask that in Slack, and then we can answer all your questions about that there. Cool. So now I have this justify content space around. So it seems like this is pretty close to our header here, our links on the top. So what I'm going to do is add a margin. So I'm going to say margin top 70 pixels. So this will basically just add some space, and that looks a little better. Cool. So this looks a little better than what we started with. Now let's just add a background so we can see what our content looks like. So I'll just say gray. This doesn't look super great. So what I'm going to do is find a hex color. So this hex color, see, it's just a nice lighter gray that blends in better with the page. So if you want, you can just find HTML hex colors here. You can just drag to whatever color you want, and then you have the value right here. So I'll post this in the chat, but you don't need to worry about it right now. So the reason we use this pound sign in front of me instead of a period is because we use the ID. So right here is an ID. An ID, you use pound signs, and for a class, you use periods.
So how, what are all the colors representing? Like I know it represents on how the computer reads them or something, but like, could you explain that to us?
You mean this F8?
Yeah.
This is just a hex code, and basically the computer can read the hex and say, okay, F8 maps this exact color like a very light gray. And you don't need to worry how it actually works. You just need to know that this represents a color, and if you go to the link that I sent, you can basically choose the color that you want.
Okay. Also,
yeah, I'll do a review at the end.
Okay. What should we name the file before we run it onto onto Chrome or something?
Index.html.
Yeah. So I was at the start of the class. All the code that.
Okay.
Is he frozen on everybody's screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
There's no sound at all.
Rip.
No sound at
He
all.
just left.
We're trying to fix it real quick. He just left. We're having some internet issues.
The bandwidth.
If everybody turns off their videos, it might be a lot faster. Because
Yeah, so let's just have everyone turn off their videos for now.
Cool. So let me share my screen again. So okay. Okay. So we'll have a section called About. So this is basically what we'll use to actually just write some content about ourselves. So here we'll give it a title. We'll say about me.
You're cutting off.
It'll be posted right after class. So questions about me.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you connect the HTML to the CSS so that whatever you put on the CSS appears on the HTML page?
Yeah, so like I said at the start of the class, you just have to add this link, rel equals style sheet, and then link your styles.css file right here. And that'll tell the page that we want to read this file. Don't worry too much about doing this yourself. Just make sure you can follow along and see what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to add a few paragraphs about me. Here's a paragraph about me. Here is another paragraph about me. So this will I'll put some content in here that basically just to fill up the space. But you guys, when you guys are actually creating your website, you'll want to write actual content about yourself. So now you can see we have a lot of random words. So ideally this is at least centered. So let's add some styles to this. So now what I'll do here is say about, and basically what we can do is, so actually instead of doing it at about, what we can do is actually just say that we want to center our entire page. So what we can do is just say body. This will say, look, anything in body, anything in our entire content of our page, basically, it'll change that CSS. So now we can say text align, center, and that'll center our content. So the next thing we want to do for about is just add some space in between these sections because it's kind of close to each other. So we'll just give it another margin top of 70. Cool, so now it's a little more spaced out.
So is it another language? You know,
Sorry?
here, you know, like what, like the so-called random words. Is it another language or not?
This is just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Those are the languages that we're using.
I mean, no, but you know the random words there.
Oh, yeah. This is a different language. It's not important. It's just a placeholder text.
Oh.
Okay. Cool. And then the last section we'll want to add is our some maybe activities that we're doing. So I'll call it.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
When I'm in CSS and I type all of the stuff, and when I run it, it just prints what I've typed on the screen. It doesn't actually print what it's supposed to print.
Yeah, so make sure you're using this right format. If you post your code in the Slack channel after class, I can help you out with that.
Okay.
Cool. So now we'll add a list of activities. So here, let's just if you guys remember from last class, we can use a format for images that will show random images. So let's just do this. So to save time, we can just put random activities that we do. So here, maybe you would say, oh, I play soccer. So you could do a picture of a soccer ball, or I do swimming. You can do a picture of a pool, or whatever it is you do. You like to code, you can do a picture of a computer. So here, just try to fill in some pictures of things you do and things you like to do. Yeah, so these are some activities. And then for this, similarly, we might want to add some spacing.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
So for some reason, I can't do split screen. So is there any way that you could keep the code up afterwards so I can maybe like take a screenshot?
Yeah, all this code is going to be posted online, so you don't have to worry about taking a screenshot.
And will that
just
be
try
like
to
by
follow
today,
along.
or will
Yeah,
that be
it'll
by
be
today?
posted. Yeah, today.
Where will you post the code?
It'll be on GitHub, but I'll post a link to the tiny URL. So all the information you need for this class is on the tiny URL. So just make sure you guys go to that link after class, and you'll be able to see it. So tinyurl.com/sheltercoding, and you'll be able to, and we'll post the code just like this. I'll add a section that says code, and then I'll link out the code. Cool. So now we have our activities. We have our sections. It looks like we have most of the content on our page. So for the last 15 minutes of class, what I'm going to try to do is actually, so let me first style these sections really quick, just because they, the about me activities at the top, because it looks kind of bland. So I'll just say padding top 20 pixels, padding bottom 20 pixels. So adds a little more space. Actually, we don't need the bottom. Cool. So that looks a little better. And then let's make it a little bigger font size, 20 pixels too. So that looks nice. And then maybe let's do a background. I have a preset background for this, so it doesn't look very great. So I'll just remove the background for now. We can have the background later. So now we have our sections, and then we'd want to, the last thing we want to do is make our sections actually link to each of these actual sections. So the way we do this is, since we have IDs on our sections, ID equals about, ID equals activities, and ID equals me, corresponding to each of these three sections, what we can actually do is add a link here. So an A tag is actually a link. So an A tag, we can give it an href attribute. And the href attribute will basically say where we want it to go. So like I said in last class, what we can do is say google.com. And what that will do is just make it go to Google. But obviously we don't want to do that. So what we'll say instead is about. So that corresponds to this about, and we can use the hashtag here to say we want to go to the ID equals about section. As long as the div has an ID associated with it, this will work. And then me, and then activities. So now what we have is links to each of our sections. So now if I click activities, you can see it skips down to activities. If I click about, it skips to about. And yeah, that looks a little better. So to make this a little easier to see, I'll give the about section a bigger font size so that it takes up more space. And then that way you can see how it skips to the different sections. Cool. So the last thing we'll do is write some JavaScript. So right now, this is cool. We can skip to our sections and that works fine. But it's kind of jerky, right? So it just jumps randomly on the page. You can't really tell where it's going or how it's getting there. So what we'll want to do actually is add custom JavaScript to animate this scrolling. So the first thing we'll want to do actually is use a library called jQuery. So let me pause for any questions first, actually.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I copied down the code exactly, the flex direction, the justify content, but somehow it's not appearing exactly as I copied it on the Chrome. Is there a reason why?
It must not be exactly the same. It's hard for me to know why, but if you post your code in the Slack channel, then I can answer.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, once I finish writing the JavaScript, we can go over the code and answer any questions that you guys have.
Could you go back to the HTML code?
Yeah. Again, you guys don't need to copy this code at all and do it yourself. It's just going to slow us down if you guys write all of this yourself, because that's not realistic to do in 1 hour. So the best thing to do is try to follow along with what I'm doing, and then you can write the code for yourself after class.
I don't think you have to write this.
Sorry? Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is bring in our library that will allow us to add some scrolling to our page. So this is, again, don't worry about this. This is just a jQuery library. jQuery is essentially, you can just Google it here. It's a JavaScript library. Handling and animations a lot easier. So you guys can read about it more. It's just called jQuery right here. But basically, what's important is that we can write jQuery, custom jQuery that will actually do different things that on our page and do animations, for example. So one thing we can do, and even I don't really understand this code that much. You don't have to worry about it. what matters is that we can find functions online that will allow for scrolling. So I can search scrolling in jQuery examples, and then so we can see like this is how you scroll, and like you'll find a lot of different examples. So I found this code online, and it basically does an animation of scrolling, and then you can see these comments that explain what each part does. But what matters the most is that when we say when an A tag is clicked, so on click, we'll execute this code. So nothing will happen when I refresh my page, but as soon as I click something, it will execute the jQuery. So it looks like my internet's really slow. Okay, there we go. So yeah, so now when I click this, it'll nicely scroll to the bottom of the page, which is what we wanted. And again, don't worry about all this code. What matters the most is that, yeah, so don't worry about the link to the scroll code either. I will post this code after class, and then you guys can see everything. But yeah, so what matters is that when we click this link, it will execute this code and animate a scroll to the element that we want it to go to. So yeah. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
In style, does the order of the dot sections, dot profile, or hash about matter?
No. So in the CSS file, all these sections can be ordered however you want. So I can move this here. It won't affect the page at all. But I think it's important that you have like each section named and the brackets surround of that section. So if I remove this bracket, for example, then that will mess up the page, as you can see. So you just want to make sure that you have brackets surrounding each class or ID, and then you have all the properties defined within the brackets.
Now, since body is for the entire page, should that be all the way on top?
No, that doesn't matter either. So I can move the body to the bottom, and it'll still work. So yeah, all that matters is you have the correct names in front of the brackets.
Thank you.
What does display : flex : mean again?
Can you explain the JavaScript part?
Excuse me, can you explain the JavaScript part?
Explain flex.
You're lagging.
Get better internet.
Can you re-explain the JavaScript part?
Yeah, we're just having some internet issues. Once he gets it fixed, he'll explain it.
Don't use Comcast.
Can I see the JavaScript?
He's not there.
He's still trying to load in. If not, he'll post the code on the website. Well, he can come in here and try say some closing words.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Let me share my screen again. So yeah, so let me explain Flexbox again. So the Flex layout. So here, actually, let's play this game. So for the last 5 minutes, let's play this game. This will help us understand Flexbox, and it'll make it a little easier for you guys to write your CSS. So this will be a part of your homework too. So Flexbox basically is something that allows you to move your content on your page to where you want it to be. So this first example, so there's different levels on this game. First example is justify content. So justify content says where you want the content to be on the page, and here's the different properties. So based on these properties, does anyone know what we want justify content to equal? So I'm going to say justify content, and then does what I should put as the property value so that our frog can go to the right side of the page.
Space between?
Cool.
Oh.
No, so it's actually flex end, which means that since our box is essentially the entire, if we say flex end, that means it'll go to the end of the box. So it goes to this right side, and
I see.
So we'll play another one to help you guys. So cool. So now we have two frogs, and we want them to be on the two pads in the middle of the page. Does anyone know what this one should be?
Flex center?
Content.
Yeah, so it's center. So center will make it, oh, sorry. Center makes the middle of the page, and now we can see that our content's in the middle. So let's do one more, and then I'll go over the JavaScript again. So does anyone have an idea of what this one should be? So here's the properties again to help you.
Just right.
Space between.
So if we say center, yeah. So center will move them all to the center, but what we want them to have is a little space in between. So that's why we'll use space between. So now space between will actually start the frog on the very left of the page, right? So there's another similar property. Do you guys know what this one should be? So that there's a little space on the right and left of the frog, so that they're more aligned with the pads, the lily pads.
Space around.
Yep, you got it. So now they have a little space because we said put space around it, so on both sides of it instead of just in between them. Cool. So I'll stop here, and you guys can play the rest of the levels for your homework, and that'll help you understand CSS a little bit more, because flexboxes are very important and one of the easiest, the most important things that you can do to make your life easier. Okay, so let me go back to the code, and I'll answer any questions.
Sorry, I joined late. I don't really know what code I'm supposed to use for the Flexbox.
Yeah, so Flexbox Froggy actually will tell you everything. It has directions on top of each page. So I'll make sure to link this in the docs, so you guys will have all that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Wait, can you do a review of this whole thing?
Yeah. So was there anything specific that you wanted me to go over?
Can you just do like a really brief summary, like from the top on?
Yeah. So the link, so this link tag basically says, look for the styles CSS file. As long as it's in the same folder as our index.html file, we'll be able to read all the CSS. So now when I link it, it'll read all the CSS in this file and to style my page. But for example, if I actually remove it, now our page is not styled at all and looks a lot worse. Then we have our sections at the top. So these sections about me and activities are right here, and they use A tags because they're links to other sections on the page. So about will go to the about me section. Activities will go down here to the activity section. So when I click them, they'll go down because they're links to those right here. And that's the reason that works is because we have an ID associated with each one. So the ID equals about and ID equals activities. That will basically tell it where to go on the page. Then we have the about div, and then this one is basically just some content about yourself. So that's what you guys can do to write some information about yourselves. So we use the H1 tag, that's a header. That's why it's bold and bigger. Then the P tag is just normal text. And then we say, we can, yeah.
Got it, thanks.
Wait, did the
So
class just
now we have a
start?
P tag, and no, the class is about to end.
Oh shoot.
Don't worry, we'll have a recording online, and that's why you guys don't need to worry about screenshotting the code or writing down all this code, because all of this code will be online and available for you to see. Cool, and then we'll have the activity section too, and this has our image tags, which allow us to display all of our images. And here you can put different activities that you do, like playing sports and coding and anything else. Cool, and
When's
then
the video gonna come out on the TinyURL link?
it'll come out like about an hour after the class once we have the recording ready. So yeah, and then the script tag is what links to our JavaScript file. So we have our JavaScript here, and this script tag basically says, load this JavaScript file and do whatever it says on the page. And then I'll explain this JavaScript really quick. So basically what matters is that we're saying when we click an A tag, so on click, which we see here, these A tags. So when we click one of these tags that we've already created, we find the element, and then we basically will animate it. So we call this animate function. And again, you guys don't have to worry about this. Even I don't fully understand this code. What matters is that you know that this block of code scrolls down the page. And it's just an example script. So now we animate it and we say, find the element, animate to that element, and then take 800 milliseconds to do it. So this is in milliseconds. So milliseconds. So yeah, so now if I click this, it'll take 800 milliseconds to scroll down. So if I do like for example 1005 seconds, so now if I refresh, now you can see that it's a lot slower and it takes 5 seconds. So that's how you can change the time of the animation. Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I'm using Ripple, and for some reason, anything in style CSS or JavaScript, it doesn't work.
Sorry, what are you using?
I'm using REPL.
Oh, I see. Yeah, sorry, it's hard for me to debug your code without seeing it. So if you could click share at the top of your REPL link, and then send me the link to it, then I'll be able to see the code and I can help you out, and just post it in the Slack channel.
How do you know when to use class versus ID?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So ID is helpful for when you want to do this scrolling action. So that way we can point to using the hashtag, we can point to this section. So ID is really meant for only when there's only one element on the page. So since there's only one about section or one activity section, we're able to use ID. But you'll want to use a class when there's multiple things on the page. So like if you know you're gonna use something twice, then that's a good idea to use a class, because you'll be able to use the CSS twice. But an ID will be when you know that you're only going to use the element once.
I have a question. I went on Flex Froggy, but on level 5, I entered the code, but it wasn't working.
Yeah, so let me look at level 5 really quick. So what did you try for level 5?
I said align items and then I put baseline.
Yeah, so align items. Yeah, so it doesn't look like, baseline will do it. I think basically what we want to do is, let's see. Sorry. But yeah, this actually looks like a bug on the website, because nothing else will work.
It worked with
there we
Flex
go.
End for me. Yeah.
Oh, so I think this is a bug because Flex End. Yeah, I'm not sure it's giving you all the information you need, but Flex End will basically, it says here items will go to the bottom of the container. So that's how you know that works.
Thanks.
When will the code be posted?
It will be posted right after the class. So I'll push up the code and then link it in the tiny URL.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I'll post it right now so that you guys can have all the information.
What time will this class end?
The class is over, so you guys are free to leave whenever you want.
If you wanted to use like link something in your code that wasn't in the same folder, how would you do that?
So you would basically want to, so if it's in a different folder, so let's say you have image folder, and then I'll drag my image to there. And then I could go here and say image slash profile. And then basically you want to give it a path to your file, and then it'll still work. But if I don't do that, then the image won't load.
Okay, thank you.
Could you go back to the JavaScript?
Yeah. You can also find this code in the, so if you click on the code in this tiny URL, and then you click the JavaScript file, you'll be able to see all of it here too. Cool. I'm gonna end class. Anyone with any other questions, feel free to ask them on Slack, and I'll answer them there.